This is the Rock-afire restoration part 15, and today I'll be working on air leaks. So as I get closer to building the stage and then of course putting the characters on the stage, I need to make sure that they are as pneumatically sound as possible. In earlier segments of this series, I did air up the characters and I ran them, and I fixed all the immediate air leaks that I had. But ever since Looneybird's Tolomatic cylinder started leaking, I realized that I need to make sure that no more leaks have developed since then. And of course, I can make repairs when the stage is done and I have all the characters on, but I would prefer that when the characters are running for the first time on the stage that they do not have any issues. So let's start with Billy Bob and check and see if he has any air leaks. Alright, I don't hear any air leaks right off the bat, but who knows? Let's do a movement test to really see. I'm really impressed. I don't hear any leaks at all. Of course, once I stress test them and run them for a couple of hours, maybe we'll see some leaks develop. I would do Mitzi next, but she's headless at the moment. There is some progress being made on her, though. As you can see, I had the new ear lever holders welded on. Beach Bear is next, and a couple weeks back I had to air him up to test a mask I painted for a friend. I did hear a pretty major air leak. Let's see if that leak is still occurring. I do hear a clear air leak. I can't tell where it's coming from, though. It could be the valve bank or inside the character. A movement test will hopefully tell us.
Okay, that appears to be one of the movements. There is an airline leak down here that I can hear. I'll figure that out, but so we know movement 8, which is the arm raise, is causing that leak. I'm curious what that is. I wonder if that's it sounds like air's blowing out of the cylinder. I'm hoping that it isn't, I don't have to rebuild the cylinder. Maybe the hose just came off the barb or something. Maybe it's cut, so we'll see. All right, so let's investigate the problem here. I don't really feel anything around the seal, so I don't think that that's the issue, but you feel a leak right here. So the hose is cut. That's good for me because it means I don't have to take off his body shell and rebuild his cylinder.
This is an easy fix. Just a hose that's cut on the barb fitting. All I need to do is cut the end off the hose and put it back on the barb.
So all I'm going to do is just rip this hose off. It's kind of not the best thing. There it goes. And then I'm just going to take, normally I'll take some pretty sharp scissors. In this case I've got an X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to cut that bad section off. That's what, just a 1/2 inch or something like that. And then I'm going to re-press that onto the barb.
So we have that leak fixed, but I still have the leak in the valve bank. I'll do the movement test again down here to see which movement it is.
Okay, so I hear maybe a sticky valve there. So number 3. Number 4. that appears to be one of the leaks. There is another one. So with number 15, any of these movements that leak like this, I just sort of feel around because you have a bunch of different connections that it could be leaking at. It could be leaking here, it could be leaking at the flow control, it could be leaking at the end of the flow control, and it could also be leaking all the way back here. So right now, kind of getting the sense that it's right there. And I'll basically do the exact same process. I'll just cut the hose off at the point where it's leaking, and then I will push it back onto the barb.
Alright, so upon closer inspection, the leak is actually not the hose, it's the fitting. It's loose, and when I tightened it with my hand, it stopped leaking, but clearly I don't want to leave it just hand tight because it could loosen again. And as you guys can see, that little black ring at the bottom of the fitting, that's actually an O-ring to seal the fitting, but because it's been exposed to air and dust for so long, it's become brittle. So I'll put some Teflon tape on the thread and then tighten it down, because whenever I tighten the fitting down on that O-ring, it's just going to crack. The O-ring's basically worthless, so I'll just take that off and put some Teflon tape on.
All right, so Beach Bear is aired up right now, and I can hear pretty much nothing, which is good. Occasionally you'll have a situation where a valve bank, for whatever reason, maybe there's a seal somewhere, is having a little bit of blow-by with the exhaust. And I've tried chasing down some of those leaks before, and sometimes, in order to fix them, you get more leaks than, you had before, and you really can't locate it. But luckily, I'm not having this issue with Beach Bear right now, so I'm glad, because I don't hear anything, and all the movements check out. Don't hear any leaks whenever I actuate any of the movements. That's another thing you want to make sure you check, because you may air up a character and it has no leaks, but you aren't testing an entire set of ports when you do that. So whenever you actuate the movement, that's gonna show you whether or not you have a leak. So yeah, that's awesome that he worked out that way. So now we'll go on to fats.
Another thing I mentioned previously, I am going to stress test the characters and run them for probably about 2 hours before I put them on the stage, just to work out any more leaks that develop shortly after this. This test is basically just to get at any major leaks that are already apparent.
So I hear a leak right there with those eye turns, so might have to replace the cylinder. I hear a leak in that head turn. Try and give you guys a good idea of what's going on here. So this is the hose, and whenever I pull on it or push it in this direction, you can see that it leaks. And the reason for that is over time, as this eye turn mechanism has actuated, it's caused strain on that hose over and over again, and over time it gets cut on this barb. So there's a little hole in there that is leaking air. So all I do is I'm actually going to pull this off, and then, like all the others, I will just cut that little end off and then put it back on the barb. If the hose gets too short, you'll have to splice it, but luckily I have more than enough extra airline here. I don't think that'll be a problem. So now that that's no longer a problem, I can actually still hear a very tiny air leak in the mouth movement.
This was just a hose cut on a barb, so I went ahead and fixed that. So one thing I think is pretty important that I sort of thought about as I've had more of the cosmetics completed is I want to, especially in the case of Fats, protect his cosmetics from the sharp edges of the fiberglass. So what I did is I got this rubber trim that has a slot in it, and it fits right over the fiberglass really well. Creative Engineering actually used this around 1983. Theirs was a little bit harder, and I think it had like a piece of metal in it, so it actually sort of conforms better, but I used this. This is a very soft rubber. And with Fats, like I said, it's very important because, especially for him, I have a brand new jacket, and I do not want that to be damaged or cut by the sharp fiberglass edge. And as you can see right here with his arm, there's virtually no clearance on this arm turn. So I'll have to trim this fiberglass piece a little bit and then put the rubber trim back over it. And I also did this around his neck and on Beach Bear, and there's several other places I'll do it, but I ran out this time. I've been working on some other stuff for the show, like cosmetics. Here's Billy Bob with all his brand new cosmetics. And then also right here you can see Earl. And then progress on the stage. All of that will be filmed in the next segment of the series.